part of efforts to tackle a backlog in the courts, but some lawyers are warning it could lead to a large number of appeals. Well, joining me to discuss this story is the criminal defence lawyer, Nick Freeman. Nick, now come on, you know a thing or two about this. What on earth is this all about? Is this going to actually help reduce the burden currently on the court system?
Yeah, absolutely. It will immediately free up it's estimated about 1,700 days in the Crown Court. But there are several problems here. I mean, apart from a lack of investment, the way cases are listed in the magistrates' courts and the way the cases are listed in the Crown Court are very different. And in short, the magistrates' court is much quicker, it's much more efficient, it's less cumbersome. And prior to COVID, cases were being delayed massively. You know, some cases were going back 2 years. Some Crown Court trials, not complex trials, assault trials, particularly around London, were being delayed 2 years. And there's the old saying that, the old legal maxim, you know, justice delayed is justice denied. So the answer to your question is yes, it will speed things up rapidly because you either have a district judge or 3 lay magistrates dealing with it, which is far easier as a whole than a jury. But of course, it's important to remember that for most offences, about 80% of all offences at the moment go through the magistrates' courts. Obviously, with these increased sentencing powers, it will be far more. And that will free up the Crown Court to catch up on its backlog and leave them to concentrate on more serious matters, the most serious type of cases. But defendants will always have the right, for most offences, to decide where they want to be tried. So, for example, theft, burglary, most assaults, those sort of offences, that there is always a right of election by a defendant, which they can exercise. But if they do elect to go to the Crown Court, then of course there are increased sentencing powers, and they know there will be extra delays, which the courts are trying to get through. You know, if you elect to have the case dealt with by a magistrate or magistrates, you'll have the case tried either by a judge or by 3 magistrates. It will be much quicker. And even with this extended power of sentencing, the sentences are limited, whereas at the Crown Court, they're obviously, most of them are limited, but they're much longer. So you make a choice and you take the consequences.
So, Nick, I'm assuming then you're very much in the keep camp for these reforms.
I can't see any disadvantage at all. It's important to note that this sentencing power was extended 20 years ago. And it was repealed actually in 2020. And it was repealed because all successive governments were concerned that magistrates would just send people to prison and the prison population would explode. In my view, there's no basis for that at all. Magistrates are trained. They do a fantastic job. They do have a qualified lawyer in court, a barrister or solicitor who is their legal advisor. And the system works really efficiently. And the system in the Crown Court needs to change. Even when they clear the backlog, however long that's going to take, they need to change their listing system because it's archaic. If it was a business, it would go bankrupt within days. You just simply couldn't run it the way it's run. So this is a way of getting things through quickly, but it doesn't remove the problem from the Crown Court, which is at its foundations, which is the listing of cases is completely wrong in my view, and it needs to be run much more on a business-like basis, including extending the time that people sit. You know, you don't want to be starting court at 10:30, finishing for lunch, sometimes having a morning break, starting again at 2, having an afternoon break and finishing at 4:30. And I know there's arguments about concentration, but we need to eke out some more hours of the day. So there's a lot that can be done, but this will make a huge, huge difference. And in my view, there is absolutely no downside whatsoever.
Well, criminal defence lawyer Nick Freeman, I appreciate your thoughts and expertise. I tell you what, though, I imagine most people watching this will just be saying, I just wish we had access to justice as far as when I report a crime, it be investigated. I think all too often these days there seems to be a reluctance to actually bring about justice. But Nick Freeman, thank you very much for your time today. Now, folks.